Good day, everyone. Shortly after finishing the texture template, what we want to do is take these textures that we created, all three different types of textures, and actually input them into a final piece of artwork. We're going to call this textured initials. You can see I already have one completed, which I'll do during this video. The first thing that we want to do is, first of all, get our supplies. We have a compass, of course, a pencil. We also have photocopies of these Old English initials and then a regular piece of paper. Another thing that I'll be using for this is a light box, and you can see just turn it on right there. And although it is useful, it's not necessarily a requirement. You can do it without a light box. But anyway, I set my Old English initial, and what I'm doing now is taping my drawing paper to the Old English initial. Then what I'll do is using the light box, and a lot of times too, guys, if you can use a window, you can do it that way. What I'm doing now is I'm putting the circle around my letter, and what this does is it creates areas of negative space to where you can implement and input different types of textures. And this is just kind of one of these things where you're getting a feel for it. It's just kind of like trial and error. If it's off too high or too low, you might need to erase it and redo it. I kind of guesstimated where the center of the letter was, and then I just drew a circle right around that letter. And if some of the letter got overlapped and went in behind the circle that I made, that's fine. I'll just cut it off. But what we want to end up with are 5 different sections. Now that I have that circle drawn, I'm going to go ahead and trace in my initial. And I want to do this initially with pencil in the event that I get a little squirrely or I don't get it exactly the way I want it. I can come back in, erase it, and then redo it. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit. Now, the whole process to trace this initial probably took me about 15 to 20 minutes. Now what I want to do is I'm going to select the 5 textures that I'm going to put in for my for the assignment. Okay, first texture, I'm going to use a simulated texture, and I decided to do this carpeted one there, so I X'd that off. I also like that the weaving as well. I used 2 abstract textures, and then I used 1 invented texture. Okay, now after I've decided on the 5 textures I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is number the areas where they are located. And for my simulated texture takes a really long time to do. So what I want to do is I want to put my simulated texture in a smaller area. Right now what I'm pointing out are just basically the negative spaces or the negative areas. That is my simulated texture, so I put a number 2 in there and put a number 2 with the simulated texture. And then I'll do a 3, a 4, and a 5. And I just kind of do this now just to plan it out. Works a little bit better like that. I do encourage you, though, for the simulated texture, since they take so long to do, is maybe use those in some of your smaller areas. I'm doing an abstract texture in my real large areas because I know that it's not going to take as long. If you want to do something like that and put a simulated texture in there, you can, but I will tell you that it'll take a while to do. Okay, so right now I'm just getting all my textures located to where I want them, and then once I'm done, I'll start going in with pencil and actually drawing in my textures. As a matter of fact, that's what we're going to start doing now. The first texture that I did was the carpeting, and here I am just penciling the very outline of the carpeting in. It's kind of almost like a hook and loop. I call it carpeting. I'm not sure if it's carpeting or not. And then I come in, and what I'm doing is a little bit of shading, and I only did a little bit till I felt comfortable with the process, and then I went back and I did it with my pen, because when I end up doing this, when I end up finishing it, I'm going to erase all those pencil lines. So I only did that one little part just to get a feel for the technique that I'm going to need to do for this texture. And then I come in and I'm going to really finish it up in pen. going to bump this speed up here just a little bit, guys, because it did take a while to do. I'd say I did this during one of my classes, and it probably took around 35 minutes to do the entire small section. So you can see that's why you want to do a small section with a simulated texture. And actually, this pen, it's a really, really fine pen, worked really well for this texture. I was able to do some delicate lines because within those loops, you can see textures in the threads, and that worked really, really well for that. So it was a really fine point rollerball pen that I used. Okay, just about finished up here with that texture. And then what I want to do is make sure you wait for it to dry, and then once it dries, you want to come in and you want to hit it very lightly with an eraser. I started to do it and I could see a little smudge, and so I stopped. And then this here is me fake erasing. But you do, once it dries, probably give it about 30 minutes and then clean it up. Okay, so that's part one. You can see the texture that I did here. Then I'm going to move on to an abstract texture. You can see the process. It could take a while, so you do need to have it planned out, and you do need to be working in pen for this assignment. Okay, have a good day.